boardroom. This is the business of esports. As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YOUGOV offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YOUGOV's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YOUGOV. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post podcast live stream. I am Paul the Prophet Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta, Lindsay the Boss Poss, Jeff the Juice Cohen. For those of you who are new here, welcome. What we do here is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week. But we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. And the best part, we do it live with you guys. We encourage you to get involved, ask questions, challenge us. It makes it so much more fun, and it's why we do the live show every Wednesday evening. So welcome, everybody. How is everyone doing tonight? Guys, I feel like it's been 10 years since we've done this together, and it's really only 1 week that we missed.
Yeah, it was weird having off last week.
It was weird. I will say I did do a 3-minute stream, so technically I never missed a week.
Did we get any comments from people?
On my 3-minute stream?
No, like did anyone say like, oh, what happened?
Yeah, on the 3-minute stream. But people understood because you could see the background of where I was. Jimmy was there in person, so he saw firsthand where and just so you guys understand, this is how much I love all of you. Not you guys on screen, you in the chat. This is how much I love all of you. In the middle of dinner, I took my laptop out and I went live in front of 8 other people at a dinner, and I did the whole thing live in front of everyone just for you guys, so you knew that I still love you. I didn't forget about you. That the live stream is important every Wednesday, and we appreciate everyone who shows up, show or not. So, but I promise we won't miss for a very long time anymore. It was a really exceptional. Jimmy, you haven't said much. What's going on?
No, I'm just feeling a little sick here, so I'm muted, so you guys can't hear me mouth breathing on my mic.
Oh my God.
But honestly, it was such a fun part of dinner because everyone's talking. We're outside by a fire pit. It's a noisy environment. There's like 8 or so people, so there's a couple side convos going, and then literally everyone stops and looks over at Paul, who's live streaming on his laptop. They loved the sign off. The future is fun. It was a really fun thing to do at dinner, I thought. Yeah, that was.
I don't want to make it a habit.
No, definitely not a habit. But that was us bringing a little bit of work and play, I thought, and sharing that experience with some people. It just shows how much fun the live stream can be if we're properly set up too, because those are potential guests and stuff.
I will say it did encourage me, and I'm curious what everyone thinks in chat, and you guys especially. We should do like more ad hoc IRL kind of streams, right? Like, especially if we're at conferences or things. It's something I want to play with and try.
Like different times of day, you mean?
Yeah, but like live from wherever we are, right? Whether it's a conference or so that, there's more interaction with not just the 4 of us, but people who are there too. Johan says, hi, everyone. Johan, welcome. So great to see you. Yeah, I think the live content's just a lot of fun. I don't know. It's just so much more fun when other people get involved than just us. Chris says only if you're in Vegas. Chris, definitely if I'm in Vegas, we'll have to go live with you. if we're in Vegas.
The FCC won't let us go live with Chris.
They'll shut us down.
We need a 5-second delay for legal reasons.
That very well might be. Guys, we have so much news to get to, like a ton. I have so many good stories this week that I want us to cover, and I want to start with. Actually, before I start, I just want to tease the podcast that's dropping this week. Really fun episode, kind of different. It's with Sam Speaker, who's the CEO and founder of GamerPod. And let me just bring it up on screen so you guys can see. That's what I was trying to do. I was talking. They produce this thing. It's really cool. This is what a GamerPod is. And basically, it's this private, like, telephone booth style thing that you can get into, stream, game. It's like sound isolated. It's there's air filtration and ventilation for the computer and for yourself. Like, it's a really all enclosed live streaming, what they call micro studio. And I think it's just so cool. And we got to talk, hardware and the challenges of building something like this and building a startup around something like this. So very interesting episode. And I highly encourage everyone to tune in this week because it's different, right?
Who are they targeting with this B2B?
That's the first question I asked. And I don't want to give it too much away because I want everyone to tune in tomorrow. But there's a few different business models, right? You could sell it B2C, like for, crazy people who want just something cool, doesn't matter the cost, in their living room or their office or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you have more like the ATM model where, you put it in an existing land center or in a shopping mall or something. And, you have people who can use it remotely, just swipe in and the door opens, that kind of thing. So there's different business models. And I just think it's very cool. It's very different. And it was a fun conversation talking about GamerPods. Johan says, I like the ad hoc stream idea, especially at events you guys are at. Johan, we filmed so much content from Crypto Bahamas this past week. So definitely stay tuned for that. I know it's not live, but we will definitely try and do more live streams when we are away, because I agree. It's a lot of fun. Clinton says, Paul is wicked smart. Clinton, you're the wicked smart one. Clinton, who was at Crypto Bahamas with us and did an incredible job on stage on that gaming panel. Really one of a kind. Guys, can we talk about news this week?
Absolutely.
I have a bunch of stories.
Lightning round.
not yet.
That would be bold.
I want to start with something a bit deeper, okay? And this is Embracer Group to acquire Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Square Enix Montreal, and more for $300 million. So Embracer Group making an acquisition of all these studios. They're going to own over 50 new IPs. That's going to include Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, and Thief, just to name a few. They're paying $300 million for this IP and these rights. And it will remove all Western Division studios under Square Enix's umbrella. So Square Enix will have nothing in the West, nothing in North America, nothing in Europe anymore. All of them will be owned by Embracer. I will just add two other stories to this that we're all talking about this acquisition, but from different angles. This one talked about how Square Enix is selling their Tomb Raider IP to invest more in blockchain games. So this is from the Square Enix side. From the seller side, they wanted to get out of essentially traditional gaming and strike a deal with Embracer to offload titles like Tomb Raider and Deus Ex and all these things so that they could make blockchain-based games. And then the third story, which adds another little angle here, is Square Enix supposedly lost $200 million on Marvel games, which seems shocking. But between Marvel Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, those two games, they lost $200 million. So maybe this is why they want to sell off the studios. I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. Embracer Group, $11 billion company, acquiring all this IP, all these game studios. Good, bad, interesting? What's the takeaway here? Jeff, start with you.
I have a lot of thoughts. One, I didn't realize Embracer Group was so big. 11 billion's quite large. I mean, that's like Take-Two is like 15 or 18 billion. So that's pretty surprising to me.
You're like a CD Project Red, right? That's sort of equivalent.
I think CD Projekt's like two.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah. So 11's a lot bigger. This is the first gaming acquisition I feel like in the last 2 years where when you look at the purchase price, you're like, wait, that's it? Like I feel like with Bungie, we were all like, that's a lot, just for Bungie. Even with Activision, it was like they paid like a very hefty, Microsoft paid a very hefty premium. Whereas this one, you sort of, I feel like scratch your head. You're like 300 million really doesn't seem like that much for the Tomb Raider IP, for 3 studios that are pumping out AAA content in the scope of what we've seen in the market. Like, obviously we don't have all the financials. The article you pulled up makes it seem like the financials aren't great. Like if they're losing 200 million, clearly that hurts the valuation. But just in terms of development capacity and stuff, 300 million seems like a very cheap price to be paying for some pretty good talent, some pretty good IP, and a lot of development capacity. That's my initial thought.
I mean, is maybe the IP not as good as we think it is, though? Like, to lose money on a Marvel game and an Avengers game, doesn't anyone think that that's actually hard to do, potentially?
They didn't just lose money too; they lost a lot of money. Hundreds of millions. I think it just goes to show how hard it is to make a fun game, right? And we always come back to that, whether we're talking about play-to-earn gaming or indie game studios, or what the big, the larger studios need to do, and that's make fun games. And my first thought was like, wow, Sony's got to feel like suckers because they overpaid for Bungie, and you guys know I felt that way for a while. But then when you talk about, well, even though they had access to this IP, they didn't do anything with it. Because it's a lot more than just having the IP, right? It's executing, which it doesn't seem like they've been able to do. Interesting too that the IP that we're talking about, especially Tomb Raider and Avengers, are crossover IP, right? Where it's not just limited to gaming alone. There's comics, there's movies, there's TV series and spinoffs there. And I understand this is probably just the video game portion of that, but it's hard to make a game. So clearly they're having struggles making good games, and wanted to offload something that had been losing them money. I think it's kind of what it sounds like.
I mean, like IP does have a shelf life, though, right? Like there are exceptions. There's Star Wars, by the way. Happy May the 4th, everyone. Where's everyone's lightsaber? I don't know what you guys came lightsaberless. But
Got mine right here.
But like, other than the some of these huge tentpole IP, like Star Wars and things like that have stood the test of time, Tomb Raider, I would argue, is definitely not what it was 10 years ago. Like, it's not a game that people are clamoring to play when it comes out. And even Marvel, you could argue, has just bombarded the market so much that another game or another whatever just doesn't hit that hard. I mean, Lindsay, do you think IP has a shelf life in this context, and maybe this is why the low price, or the relatively low price?
This is extremely random, but I actually just read a statistic of who has been, and this was, I think, 2 or 3 days ago. I was reading about who has been on the cover of most gaming related magazines and publications in the past 10 years. And Lara Croft from Tomb Raider was far and away the top. Which
maybe for other reasons, but
yeah, well, of course, but the games have been more successful than I thought they would be. I just thought that was an interesting little factoid. Yeah, like you said, there's several reasons why she would be, but it's just interesting. What I found most fascinating about reading this was the specific distinction that Square Enix wanted to get out of the business of making games in the West. And I think that that's something that we should definitely talk about, because we tend to be, and rightly so, very critical of the game development environment in Asia, and particularly in China. Even in India, there's been some starts and stops, and we all see what happened on PUBG. But I know that they're focusing to more blockchain-based gaming on the same day that their NFT market collapsed. So not maybe the best move right now. But I find it very fascinating that they're looking to get out of this market. I can't tell if there's some sort of fatigue. It can get tiring to make same games from used IP over and over. I don't know that there's a ton of motivation from developers there to like want to work on the Avengers, especially when the movies are a smash success and the games have left a lot to be desired. So maybe everyone is just sort of ready for a change, but getting out of the Western market is not something that we've heard a lot of companies making a play to do. And I think that there's a lot to think about when it comes to that as a reason for selling.
So it's funny that you talk about the getting into like it's almost like getting out of traditional games and putting more research into blockchain games. When I first saw like some people tweeting about that, I literally thought it was like a joke, that the people were like, oh, they're probably like transitioning to blockchain. And it turns out that like it obviously was something that they did mention. I don't know if it's like dollar for dollar, they're going to move all the money they got from this to blockchain gaming. But yeah, I thought that was super surprising. Just because, you know, we've talked about this a lot on Meta Business, like that ecosystem just isn't really there yet. Like there's maybe 1 or 2 million people in the blockchain gaming ecosystem total. Like there's almost more VCs in the blockchain gaming ecosystem than there are actual players of the games. So it's a bit premature. So I am surprised, Lindsay. I think all your points about IP are correct, right? And Chris brings up some good points in the chat around, you know, using licensed IP, particularly the ones that haven't had a success in video games, can be tricky. It's shocking to me that an Avengers game wouldn't do well, because I'm a huge Avengers fan, and like, you know, we've seen other superhero games do really well. Arkham Knight with Batman, Spider-Man has obviously been, you know, one of the best games out there. So it's surprising. It's maybe it's a bit of execution versus just opportunity. But still, you're selling development studios that have a ton of talented people at a time when that is an incredibly valuable resource. So if the Marvel IP wasn't working, just cancel that deal and create a different IP. So it's I don't know, very surprising to me.
Yeah, maybe they thought they're selling at the peak also, right? Maybe they thought this is the top and people are going to pay big dollars right now. SEO says hello. SEO, welcome. Chris says, I wonder if the Canadian-backed incentives for tech is going to disappear in the near future. Was a good reason to do Biz Up North. I mean, Chris, they've been around for decades now, those tax credits, and I seriously doubt, I haven't heard anything to think they're going to go away, but I'd be pretty surprised if they did go away. This is a big part of the economy, especially in Quebec, where most of these studios are located, to attract creative development. Robert says, hello, Robert. Chris says, Marvel versus Capcom didn't make much money either, and they have a huge fan base. Those licensing costs will kill you if you're not Lego. I mean, yeah, it's one of these things where even with good IP, you can still make a bad game. I mean, that's just the reality. And almost all these games are not really good games. Have any of you guys played like the Avengers game? It's really pretty bad. It's pretty awful.
Very limited in what you can do there, right? I played it for a little bit. Haven't had a good Tomb Raider game that I can recall either, because my thought is if I want to go to that action adventure kind of puzzle genre, I think Uncharted instantly, right? So Tomb Raider used to have, I thought, that top spot, but fell off in the last 5 years, absent Lindsay's reference to.
Even then, it's sort of like it's a genre. Right? It's a genre that's not hot anymore. They haven't made a movie in at least 10 years. And the reality is, like, the appeal of Lara Croft, like, I guarantee you, if we polled 12-year-olds today, they probably don't even know who the character is. Right? It's just a little bit of it's an IP that did not transfer well, has not aged well in my mind. Nessa says hello Nessa, welcome. Chris says, will be interesting to see how Wolverine does with Naughty Dog producing it. Yeah, I mean, Chris, and I'm curious what all of you guys think in chat, but I think we have to disconnect IP from the studio and from the resulting game, right? These are all three independent variables, and the resulting game is not necessarily a product of any of them, right? Like, meaning a great studio with great IP isn't guaranteed to produce a great game. There's no direct causality in my mind.
No. There's probably correlation, at least. A great studio has a better chance of making a great game, but obviously
True.
studios do mess up.
Hardware Barbecue says, "Hey, Hardware Barbecue, hello, welcome." Guys, I want to talk about a little bit of a related story, and I was going to keep this for the lightning round, but I think I want to just put it here because it makes sense here. And this is an article that could be maybe very controversial. We may have nothing to say, but this is Joseph Ferris, who, in an interview, basically said he doesn't think games need to be fun to succeed. And my frustration with this interview and this article, frankly, he gives examples of games that, the mechanics and the interactivity is what, is the key to the experience. And he gives examples, but I feel like he does not really say anything, like doesn't provide an alternative solution other than the fact that he says games don't need to be fun to be successful. And so I'm curious, you think he's totally off, and maybe in the context of the other story, right? Like, where does this factor in for you? He's totally wrong. He's totally right. And what is the alternative argument if you believe he's right? How do we measure success or predict success? Lindsay, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
No, I'm trying to think about this because this is the total antithesis of what we usually talk about. And that games need to be fun. I'm trying to think of any parallel industry, and I guess you could say that there's some parallels between the movie industry in that a lot of the movies that have been successful over the past years have not necessarily been that original or that interesting. A lot of them have been kind of big budget churn films, and there is a point to be sort of made about, I don't know, repackaging very similar IPs and just sort of getting people to spend their money on the same game in a different format. It's just, I don't know. This isn't very exciting to read. It's very like soulless. And even it's amazing that even the prophet, who is all about making the profit, is like, this is too soulless compared to your usual argument of like games should be fun.
Because he's wrong. He's wrong. Right? Like,
well,
and this is someone who has made very successful games, right? It Takes Two won a bunch of awards. It, I think, did quite well, but he's just wrong. Like, the problem in my mind is he didn't provide an alternative explanation, right? Like, okay, if it's not about being fun, what is it? And he tiptoes around it.
That's what I kind of didn't get either. Like, are you just making games that make money then? I would assume that that's the alternative, but then you're just making mobile games.
Knowing Joseph Ferris's background, and like I feel like he's been like a little bit of an iconoclast, like he's like one of these auteurs. I wonder if this is maybe like we're not getting the full context here, because when I first saw the headline, I was like, this guy, they're talking about blockchain gaming, right? And like we've always all been like, hey, the games have to be fun for blockchain. I think we don't need to litigate that. Like, we agree. I wonder if maybe he means like a game doesn't have to be like uplifting and like fun. It could be like, hey, this is an experience of like you're in like a horror game and it's just like you love the story, whereas like the mechanics themselves aren't fun, but you're just being taken into like a very deep, like narrative driven like story, and it's like the experience itself is rewarding, but it's not like minute to minute fun. And obviously I have no idea if that's what he means, but like maybe there's some context that we're missing here.
It's a great point, because he does use the example of like feeling a loss in a game.
Yeah.
But like, this is really that down to semantics then, and the headline then is total clickbait, totally misleading, and just bad overall, right? Like, if that's the case, if it's just a subtlety of language and fun equating to just pure joy as opposed to something,
it's like watching a sad movie might not be like fun throughout, but you're like, oh well, okay,
but you finish the sad movie and you go, that was a fun way to spend my 2 hours, right?
Yeah,
like if you really like the movie.
Fun, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like semantics of language. Jimmy, I don't know if you had any thoughts here.
Literally the one thing they need to be is fun, and that's why they're called games. Like I not a lot to add to it. I think we're all on the same page here.
I just want to get caught up on comments here. Chris says Dragon Ball sure helped Arc Systems. Yeah, I mean, good. Like I said, good IP can. There's no question, but it's not a guarantee. Owen says, "Hey guys, hope everyone is well. Great panel at PAX, by the way." Owen, thank you so much, and thank you for being there. Owen says, "No shot." Jeff plugged his Twitter handle and his Discord name. I don't know why you think this is surprising. At Jeff Cohen 23, go follow the juice.
I mean, I'm getting I think my follower count's like doubled since I started this.
I mean, it's directly proportional to his self-esteem, so everyone just keep adding to that.
I mean, I have like 400 followers, so I'm not exactly a big head yet.
Owen says he's going for the clout. I can only respect it. There you go. I mean, Jeff already has clout, Owen, so I don't know if SEO says he's laughing. Says the skills platform proves that you need your games to be fun to be successful. Oh, I think this was a shot at skills. But yes, I think we all agree with that. And this was either misunderstanding or total clickbait. Either way, I think everyone agrees it has to be fun. All right, guys, let's talk about YouTube in the news. And again, I have 3 stories. This is sort of like trios of stories here, giving you different angles on the same story. And this article was SYKKUNO moves to YouTube gaming. So SYKKUNO, well-known Twitch streamer, basically leaving Twitch to go to YouTube. He's going to stream exclusively on YouTube. They didn't disclose how much he was getting paid, but there was comments that he was getting paid by YouTube, obviously, to make the switch. So there was some payment. Now, I put this next to 2 other stories that came out this week, which I don't think it's a surprise that these 2 stories came out, because they were basically in reaction to the SYKKUNO move, and also to rumors that other streamers were moving with SYKKUNO, part of like maybe even POKIMANE and some others that may have been thinking of making the move. But this was Dr. Disrespect, who's on YouTube, by the way, claims YouTube gaming doesn't support us one bit. It says the subheadline, "Such a phony industry I'm in," said the streamer who resolved a legal dispute with Twitch earlier in the year. Basically, he just said, they don't support us one bit. He unfollowed YouTube gaming. Why would I support them? And so he has expressed frustration with YouTube. Obviously, his following has gone down since he switched to YouTube. He doesn't, draw nearly the crowds, the live crowds he had while he was on Twitch. But him showing his displeasure at YouTube gaming. And then one last story here. Again, third angle on the same story. Asmongold calls out YouTube gaming, says Mixer was better. The Twitch veteran shared his thoughts on YouTube streaming section. So Asmongold, one of the top creators in the world, top streamers in the world, he said that YouTube gaming basically was worse than Mixer, and that Twitch is way better in terms of discoverability. YouTube's live streaming section is not good for viewers trying to find the creator pertaining to their interests. And he says, this is when Ludwig moved over, he says, Ludwig's on contract, non-disparagement clause. I'm not, the streamer said. It's effing garbage. It's absolute trash. It's probably the worst thing I've seen ever. Mixer was better than this, and Mixer is in the toilet. If YouTube was built around live streaming, it would be in the dumpster. Fix it tomorrow. So very strong feelings here around YouTube, despite more streamers making the move from Twitch to YouTube. Other than me being spectacularly right about the gross mismanagement at YouTube gaming, I'm curious what you guys think about all of this, and about streamers still moving over despite people who are on the platform like the doc complaining. Is it foolhardy for YouTube? Like, give me some thoughts in terms of why is YouTube still paying streamers to switch? Maybe Lindsay, start with that.
This is just so funny to me. Like this whole thing, it was Valkyrie that was like, I have 1 month left. What should I stream? I'm so behind. LOL. And then like a month later, they were giving her a reward, or an award rather.
Yeah,
Streamy for like top streamer of the year. Like, just it just like never stops being cringy. And you have all these top level people being like, hey, here's a bunch of ways you could fix it. And YouTube Gaming's like, nah, we're just gonna keep throwing money away. And then it just keeps happening. I mean, it's hilarious to watch. Like, there are clear and actionable things that several powerful streamers have laid out, and we just have gotten absolutely nothing. Like, it reminds me of the meme that's like, yes, sis, give us nothing. Like, that's YouTube to me. I just like can't handle it. It's so funny to me.
I mean, but they had maybe the worst leadership in all of gaming for the last few years, right? Fwiz has recently moved to, I don't know, like this is the definition of failing upwards, I guess. But you know, basically failed miserably at YouTube, and now you're seeing some of these consequences, right? Like when you don't innovate for years and years, this is typically what happens. But like, is no one surprised that at YouTube no one has raised their hand and said maybe we should stop, you know, signing checks for creators? Or is it too far gone? Like, what, give me some insight, guys, what you think is going on inside the boardroom at YouTube Gaming.
I don't know. I find it a bit distasteful that a lot of these people are like taking these payouts and then like going and just complaining. You know, it's like Dr. Disrespect gets kicked off Twitch, gets tens of millions of dollars to join YouTube, and it's like, oh, you're not supporting me enough. Like, I don't know. Part of me just like wants to like, you know, take out the pitchforks and just like be like, dude, just, you know, I don't know, whatever, get out of here. But maybe there's something where YouTube is trying to cater to the longer tail, and some of these people feel as though they're not getting the love and support that they deserve, but whereas YouTube is providing tools for the longer tail. I don't know that that's the case, but I would be curious to see what these guys want, because I didn't see in any of those things that they any concrete like, hey, I want a tool that allows me to better, you know, manage the stream, the chat, or I want, you know, whatever, pick another tool. It's just like, oh, you're not giving me enough respect, or you're not helping me. Like, what does that mean? Like, does Dr. Disrespect want someone from YouTube to like come over every night and like make dinner for him? Like, what is he actually asking for? I don't see any like concrete demand.
Better discoverability.
Well, that was Asmongold, in fairness, but yes, Asmongold did make
but better discoverability
demand.
is incredibly subjective, right? Like, discoverability may mean that the algorithm is giving people more choice. So Asmongold might not be the only person getting views. That actually might be good for viewers and good for the platform, but bad for Asmongold. So it's easy to complain if you're Asmongold. You're like, well, I'm used to getting 90% of the viewership of World of Warcraft, and now it's, instead of 90%, I'm getting 60%. But the viewers might like that better because they're getting more choice and more, you know, more interesting creators. Like, that's not great for him, but that might be good overall. I don't know that that's the case. I'm obviously just playing devil's advocate, but like, you can't always take one person's demands and be like, well, okay, that's what everyone needs or wants.
Except it's not one, right? That's the crux.
We're talking about the top.
It seems
1%.
to be a continuous stream of people who say YouTube Gaming's garbage. You know, it's hard. Like, I think it's a strong point, Jeff. If it's like it's one person with nothing specific and it's just sort of, you know, old man yelling at cloud, but this feels like deeper issue that multiple people have all identified and complained about, and even someone on the outside called it literally years ago. So, you know, I don't know.
They need to stop. You know, they need to shut it down. They need to redirect into other efforts. They need to fire legal that didn't include the non-disparagement clause in half the contracts. How do you give someone $10 million and let them shit talk you? The only thing I'll say, I guess, that I don't put totally on YouTube is like, okay, Doc, you don't like it, but like, you didn't need a live stream from the bathroom and get kicked off of Twitch, you know, in the first place. So what are your options really, you know? But in all seriousness, to your point, right? Like, it's multiple perspectives, multiple people over a long period of time, all with a similar experience, all hating on this thing.
And yet some are still switching.
And well,
there's still people switching, right?
That's because there's checks involved, though, right?
Yeah, but it's like, you know, it's like a restaurant getting like 2-star reviews and people still deciding to go eat there. Right? The reviews all say, "Hey, I got sick the day after. I was, puking."
Yeah,
my
but if
guts
someone
out."
says I'll pay you $2,000 to go eat at a 2-star restaurant, I'm in.
Yeah, but then if you do that and then complain about it, it's like, well, it's on you.
Yeah,
No,
that's a
it's
good
not.
point.
You
But
can go
that's
and
the
say it
situation
was
we're
worth 2 stars. What is that? Like,
Maybe Doc didn't know, but now, like a SYKKUNO, a year later with all these reviews, I think Jeff makes a good point. He can't really complain. He can, but he shouldn't, because he's going in eyes wide open.
I think it's
I think what has actually happened is
so.
these people lost audience, and they can't accept the fact that their audience isn't there for them. It's actually there for Twitch, and their little egos can't take it, so they blame YouTube, and they like come and cry. Oh, Doc's like, oh, I used to get all these millions of viewers, now I get half. Like, it must be YouTube's fault. No, Doc, you're just not as popular as you think. And if you were, then you'd continue to get the viewership.
in an extremely rudimentary cursory search of Twitch versus YouTube, Twitch has bots that help you in aiding things, extensions that help you create, a community element that helps you build people, and better fan engagement. So there are like
the tools are better, no question.
Yeah. So saying like, the tools suck over here is not like unreasonable when there's clearly actionable things that make the tools
But
just
then don't stream
better.
there.
Wow. They're not unless they're getting paid.
Right.
No one's moving
And if
without
you're
a
getting
paycheck.
paid, then don't complain publicly.
Why can't
It's
you
one or the
pay?
other.
Why can't you complain publicly if you're getting paid? What does that matter? As long as there's not a non-disparagement clause, if you're not violating anything legally.
It's like people complaining about their employer, right, on Glassdoor or whatever, right? They're getting paid, but they still take the time to complain.
Be a better employer. I don't know.
It's true.
Yeah.
Let me just get caught up on some comments here. David says, what's going on, everyone? Just want to give a quick shout out. Loving today's show, David. So good to have you here. The Doc hates every game he plays. It's hard to take him seriously when he wants to shit all over Overwatch 2. Besides, it's just a beta. David, don't get me started, because I'm going to shit all over Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
Chris says Twitch streamers are chasing the Mr. Beast dream. YouTube won't change because there's a method to success. Yeah. But the Twitch streamers are making, like the top ones, like the Asmengolds, are making millions on Twitch, right? So it's not like the Mr. Beast dream is unattainable on Twitch.
Also, as a counterpoint, all of my favorite like sketch comedy YouTubers have basically all moved to Twitch because the monetization is better. And these are people who are getting millions of views on their uploaded content, they don't use the live service platform.
I saw this coming years away, just because you could be the biggest, you could have 0 brain cells and just knock off every Twitch feature for feature, and at least be a similar service, right? Like at least be no worse. And they weren't even smart enough to do that. Like that, it's just, you really have to be pretty, you got to have a lot of tumbleweed up there to literally do as little as YouTube gaming has done.
That's nothing.
Chris says, make content, not just person playing video games. Yeah, that happens on Twitch also, Chris, right? Like there's plenty of content, not just people playing video games on Twitch. David says, facts. Sorry, I can't read this name. How long is this going to last for? We go usually about an hour and a half for those who are new here, is the typical length of our live streams. All right, guys, David mentioned it, so I think we have to talk about it. And I'm going to bring up the Doc again. By the way, Asmongold calling it worse than Mixer. That was I have such respect for Asmongold, because YouTube being worse than Mixer, that's a pretty bad dig. This is the Doc again, guys, and this is him talking about Overwatch 2. Dr. Disrespect, Overwatch 2 doesn't do enough to actually save dying franchise. So he's brought the hammer down on Overwatch revival hopes, claiming the half-boiled sequel release doesn't do enough to actually solve Blizzard title's ongoing problems and won't save the franchise. He says it's not, the comment he makes is this not just Overwatch 1? So for those of you who don't know, the beta of Overwatch 2 is out now. People are playing it. It's just the PvP right now, and it's 5v5 instead of 6v6, and a little bit of a reskin. Thoughts on the Doc and Overwatch, guys? Like, how much do you put into Doc's thoughts on Overwatch 2 here? And is it too early to call? I guess is maybe the bigger question.
That's my knee-jerk reaction. Like you're saying it's done when you're only looking at the beta, which doesn't show the half of it. We've all played tons of betas, which look almost nothing like what the actual game's going to look like. Splitgate, right, Paul? Like we know that the game is going to look much different than what the beta looked like. And we had Ian Pro on the show. Go check out. That was a great episode. But the beta looking not nearly anything like the amazing game that he's building and that we got to look at PAX. The other thing too with Doc, one, obviously he's a little eccentric, just a tad, but two, he's also building a competing FPS. So I just take everything that comes out of his mouth with multiple grains of salt because it's inflammatory by nature for the purpose of, I don't know. I don't know what the purpose is, but I think it's too soon to call, and I also question the source.
So no one thinks we can call it. Has anyone tried it? Have any of you guys tried it?
Arguably, we can call it. I mean, Jimmy's points are totally valid, but I do think if there was a sequel that needed to like come out with a bang and have a great beta, like the public negativity is so high around this, you almost never hear people talk good about Overwatch for the last 3 years plus. So it needs to be like really good to get people back, and this obviously didn't help.
Yeah, I will say I did try it. So I did have access to the beta. I did try it. I'm gonna look, guys. This is gonna be, I don't think that hot of a take, and it's gonna be clearly an unpopular opinion in this group, I think. But Blizzard is dead. Like Blizzard is actually dead as a company. Like if I had the rest in peace funeral music, that's what I would be playing right now. Overwatch 2 is like the clearest sign that Blizzard really has no purpose to exist anymore, right? As a game company, they don't make games. It's literally a reskin of Overwatch 1. That's it. And they eliminated one tank and reskinned the game. And the experience is basically exactly the same as Overwatch 1. Now, they took out some mechanics that were really broken, like the nonstop stun and freeze and like things that made Overwatch 1 horribly unplayable at the end. But it's basically just Overwatch 1 with a reskin. And I've never seen this level of laziness in game development probably ever in the history of game development. I mean, this takes the cake. I doubt they spent even 100 hours total on Overwatch 2. I would bet good money.
No, what do you think they're working on?
They changed 3 graphics and they eliminated some of the mechanics from some of the characters. It's literally toggles in the code probably, and an updated graphic.
That was a lot of the YouTube video reviews that I watched basically said that. One said this isn't even Overwatch 1.5. This is Overwatch 1.1.
Yeah, like the level of laziness that they think they can get away with is I've never seen anything like this. Like my mind was blown. Installed and rapidly uninstalled, and to me we can call it today, May 4th, 2022, the death of Blizzard. I think this is the day Blizzard really died. Chris says, what gets more viewership tomorrow, Overwatch 2 or FaZe Clan Warehouse? Guys, thoughts? I know where I stand. Definitely FaZe Clan Warehouse, Chris. Yeah. Chris says, Overwatch needed a Street Fighter 4 response. What happened this weekend? Wasn't it? Yeah. Part of the problem is the marketing of it all, right? Like, don't call it Overwatch 2. It creates an expectation of a new game. Like, people were going to expect a new game. If you put a 2 after it, call it a content patch or a balance patch or something, right? And then the expectations are $40
though.
Yeah, that's true.
Although they're giving it away, right? Except for the PvP part or whatever.
PvE may be good, but like, it's not gonna save Blizzard. Chris says, agree with Prophet, rip Blizzard. Blizzard's dead, and it's really unfortunate. Never thought I'd see the day. Brandon says, my wife is an Overwatch player and she was pretty disappointed. I mean, that I think, Brandon, has been the consensus I've heard from everyone who has played the game and who played Overwatch 1 pretty seriously. Like, I know a lot of people who played it quite seriously, and this was a huge disappointment, which is unfortunate. So for all the owners of Overwatch League teams, just a warning, your savior is not going to happen, right? Everyone, that was the other argument. Overwatch 2 is going to save Overwatch League. That's if there ever was a Hail Mary, that was that. But even the second coming of Christ isn't going to make Overwatch 2 a better game. So there's that to look forward to, I guess, in terms of stories to talk about. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's talk about, I have one last story, and then I think we'll do a lightning round here. And I want to talk about POKIMANE and XQC. We've done a bit of this doc stuff for a bit. Let's switch gears. POKIMANE and XQC did a little podcast together, or at least a live stream together. And one of the things that came out of that live stream was them talking about Valorant and Riot ruining Valorant specifically. And I'll touch on what they said. What they said was specific to competitive Valorant, and they're saying that Riot streams professional games like every day. It says literally every day, and the only top streams are watch parties for the professional Valorant games. So XQC and POKIMANE sort of agreed that Riot is potentially ruining Valorant by broadcasting too many pro games and therefore occupying too much of the, call it, top streams on Twitch. I'm curious, there's obviously a deeper question here in terms of strategy, right, for developers and broadcasting professional matches. But do you agree with them that there is such a thing as too much? They even reference CSGO having made a similar mistake. Where at some point there were just so many CSGO matches being broadcast from all over the world that if you were a streamer playing CSGO, you couldn't get noticed because all of the matches and reruns flooded the category.
I often feel like we see that this is a problem that esports has in the opposite direction, where it's like, I've always struggled, a lot of the value that people are putting in the future of the esports ecosystem is around broadcast rights and sort of because they look at the NFL and they say, hey, they're selling the broadcast rights for this. This is how many viewers they have. Boom, we should be able to sell the rights for esports leagues for that. And the problem has always been that there's all this free content out there. So esports viewers have just been trained to not want to pay, and you can't monetize as well because you have a ton of free content out there that's arguably just as good as the esports leagues. So yeah, I never thought about it the reverse way, like the streamers are disadvantaged because there's so much professional content. I don't know. Discoverability seems like a big problem in the whole space. Something
anyone
we've
agree
touched on
with
a bunch.
Yeah. Anyone agree with POKIMANE and XQC here?
I don't watch enough of Valorant on Twitch to make a comment on that. It's kind of interesting to me that you have streamer. It's like an actor just saying like, oh, NBC puts on too many soap operas in the middle of the day. Like, to me, that's why I kind of love the industry, because you do have these big personalities, fans, everyone that has a voice, and we're kind of creating content that we're all interested in. But at the same time, everyone has an opinion these days, and it's kind of overwhelming when it gets ticky-tacky like this. Maybe that's what they want the channel to be about. They want to showcase the best, and if you want to be on that stream, then get to that level and get signed and play at that level. If you want someone to watch you play casually or jokingly or half-assed, you can get streamed on a different, there's other Twitch support communities and Discord support communities for up and coming streamers to get visibility. So maybe Valorant's protecting their brand, saying we're not, it's like the NBA, like, why are we going to show Little League on this channel? People come here to watch the best. Again, not my personal beliefs. I'm just trying to look at all the angles and put something cohesive together.
It feels like this is a big trend. Sorry, Lindsay, I cut you off. It feels like this is a big trend we're seeing tonight, is like streamers complaining about discoverability and the fact that like they're just not getting the attention that they once were. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe this is just like we're seeing the rise and fall of people, right? Like people are not celebrities forever, and people who are good at sports are not the best players in sports forever. And for some reason, these streamers think that forever they're going to be the most popular streamer. And maybe it's not like YouTube's fault. Maybe it's not the esports fault. Maybe it's not the algorithms. But maybe it's like, well, hey, there's other people that have become more popular, and like you're not going to be the most famous streamer for 10 years. Like it's just not the way fame works. But yet these people are still famous in name, so they get quoted, and it's like, well, I'm not getting the views I once were. It's the man's fault. It's Bobby Kodak's fault. It's YouTube's fault. It's like, well, no, that's just how fame works. Like you don't see like an NFL quarterback being like, well, the game has changed. They changed the football. Like it's people are faster. It's like, no, like your career is just on the downswing.
I kind of have heard that though, but yeah.
It's like their careers
point.
are just on the downswing, and now
Yeah.
we're just hearing them like complaining. I don't know. This is just like a thesis I've now formed over the last 30 minutes, but I don't know.
I mean, as a counterpoint though, there's the streamers weren't saying I do think that there's definitely an element of like I want more attention, but I feel like it's very different to say I wish there were better tools to build my audience than it is to say why is my audience disappearing? Like not that I definitely think you have a point. And two, I think that in particular this article shows that more because they use the example of CS:GO, and then there's no, to me, this just strongly lacks like a lot of data. Like I wonder what the Valorant streams are doing, what kind of numbers they're doing on the pro matches right now. If they were to highlight amateur streamers, what those numbers would be doing. If CS:GO wound up adjusting its strategy to not have so many of the pro matches dominating and uplifting those streamers, or if they stay the same, because clearly CS:GO as a game has not like lost any ground recently.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this feels like a sort of half-formed complaint where I feel differently about the YouTube complaint, where it's like there's very clearly tools that can be put in place that Twitch has that YouTube could copy. With this one saying like, oh, I'm not so sure that this is the right strategy. That's a fair criticism from people who are working in the industry and what they're doing. But I also feel like it's very sort of half-formed. Like, what was the resolution for CS:GO? Clearly Valorant and Riot side is seeing something that they like and how their streaming is going. If that starts to change, I assume that they will change strategy. I just think that this is a little bit too half-formed to even be this whole write-up news story.
Yeah. It feels a little bit like champagne problems on this one because, Riot cares about making Valorant sustainable for the long term, and showing pro games you would believe has to help, right? Showing fewer pro matches, who does it really benefit? Maybe the 4 or 5 biggest Valorant streamers, right? Beyond that, if I'm Joe Smith with 3 viewers, like I'm going to be at the bottom of the Valorant list no matter what, right? Even if you remove the top 4 or 5 streams, which are pro streams, I'm still going to be impossible to find. So this really only benefits like the POKIMANEs or the XQCs of the world, and therefore feels a little bit like a champagne problem. Like, oh no, I'm stream number 6 now instead of stream number 1 or 2. But if I'm right, I'm going, well, I could help 4 people, or I could make sure my game lasts for the next 10 years, right? Kind of an easy business decision, if you ask me. So not surprised that they're making it, and probably will continue to make it despite any complaints from POKIMANE and XQC. It's also, interestingly enough, one of the rare moments where I think XQC is wrong about something industry related, and I think that's read into that what you will. I don't know if that's telling it all, but it's the first time where I totally disagree with something he has come out and said. All right, guys, we've got a lightning round coming up. Before we do that, I just want to say this live stream, the Business of Esports, is supported by YouGov. They're a global research leader. YouGov's living data, like with their living data, you can really probe into the thoughts and behaviors of esports fans and gamers around the world. Your team, brand, agency, rights holder, you guys should really be talking to them. They already partner with some of the biggest teams and brands in the world. And it's really all about actionable, compelling data that drives results. We've showcased it on the podcast. I encourage everyone to go check out yougov.com/BOE. I'll put the link in some of the chats. I can't in all of them. yougov.com/BOE. And there's some free content there, like talking about the intersection of crypto and gaming, which I think is very interesting. But if you want to get in touch with YouGov, please feel free to reach out to them directly or ask one of us, myself, Jimmy, Lindsay, Jeff, any of us, and we would be happy to put you in touch with YouGov directly. They are amazing supporters of the live stream, and definitely hope everyone goes to show them some love. So, all right, guys, that takes us to, I think, everyone's favorite new segment. We are absolutely going to do a lightning round. All right, for those of you who are new here, the way a lightning round works, I'm going to go around. We're going to go clockwise and then counterclockwise, alternating. I'm going to introduce a topic. Everyone has 30 seconds or less to give their views on that topic. It's supposed to be fast-paced here. Obviously, we want everyone in chat to chime in as well, so you got to be fast and paying attention also. And I'm going to start with an article which I think is interesting here. It's talking about Brits. The headline here, Brits are world's biggest video gamers by an extra 5 days a year. So British video gamers spend more time battling it out in digital realms than any others in the world. They spend 4 hours and 36 minutes a week, 98.6% longer than other countries, the equivalent of 5 extra days per year. They log in nearly twice as long and clock up 2 hours and 19 minutes a week more on average. So Brits doing a lot of gaming, and the Swedes spending the least, interestingly enough, logging in for just 30 minutes a week. So this was a study that was done. Curious, Jimmy, to get your thoughts on this. Why Brits spending the most time?
It's always raining over there. You know, they're always inside. They can't go outside. The food's terrible. It's, you know, everything's old. They don't tear down the buildings. So what about, no, that's an awesome stat.
Sounded like me.
And I know. I try to, you know, I try every once in a while to turn it on. Awesome stat. I had no idea because I'm always, you know, we've been so focused. A lot of people think Asia initially. We, you know, Paul, I know you, or I don't want to speak for you, but Middle East, pretty bullish on. I've always been a fan of other region or specific countries, including India and Brazil. But this wouldn't make my top 5 if I were to have guessed, you know, where I thought. Sorry, I'm probably going beyond my lightning round time. Yep.
I'm keeping track.
There it is.
Jeff?
I don't have much here. I mean, this didn't come from YouGov, right?
No.
All right, good. Because I think the methodology is messed up. This doesn't make sense. No, I don't know. I don't know much. It seems like almost like an anomaly. No, nothing that I could think of. Maybe they're playing a lot of FIFA. I know it's popular over there.
Any thoughts on why Swedes are the least? Maybe Lindsay, different take on it.
They're all watching esports.
I truly think that this is directly correlated to Days of Sun. I was Googling it as Jimmy was saying that, and the UK by far has the, or not by far, but by a decent margin has the least amount in Europe. So I am not surprised by this at all. And I think Swedes are probably watching the least because they're one of the happiest countries and they have better things to do. Totally kidding.
They're all just
They're
climbing
all out
mountains
like
and
hunting
skiing or
reindeer
something.
and drinking coffee or something. I don't know.
It is an interesting statistic. I will say, you know, another data point, the second biggest market for Business of Esports is the UK. So this is where our podcasts and our videos get consumed, second to only the US, obviously. So the data rings true here. All right, let's move on to the next one here. This one, you guys are gonna like this. This is the headline here. Jewelry mogul Ben Baller's new gold gaming headset is made for gaming royalty, from styling the stars to giving gamers a high-end audio experience. So this is Ben Baller doing a special edition release of the MG20 wireless gaming headphones, and they're all in gold. It's like gold plated, I guess, or gold dipped, and it's the same performance as the non-gold headset, but the idea is to make something extremely high-end. And it's Ben Baller, who he's releasing this through Network, who I think Jimmy knows well. It's maybe can talk a bit more about it, but Jimmy Iovine's Network. So Lindsay, Thoughts on gold-plated headset?
No, I mean, it's cool. I hope that they get what they want out of it.
Hot take there.
That's all.
Dun bell.
Jeff.
I really like this. I mean, I think it's if I were a streamer or something like that, I would probably want one of these. It's like a cool way, to sort of differentiate yourself in terms of like, it's like wearing a nice watch or something like that. Like I think it's a cool little statement piece. Maybe I'll get one to do my Zoom calls for work.
I hope so. Jimmy?
Ben Baller, if you guys don't know, is a really big name in the hip hop and fashion industry, makes tons of high-end exclusive jewelry for some of the biggest entertainers in the world. Network also, Jimmy Iovine's kind of merch company where you can go online and have these digital experiences and shop. I don't know why they chose Ben Baller to do this. It just doesn't seem like a fit to me. They're like, let's just throw two dope things together and it will sell. So like the thought behind it doesn't seem to have a lot of footing. But I do like how they look and I like nice things. I want one, but I don't like that I want one.
I'm all for gold-plated anything. What I don't understand is why technology. Like those headphones maybe headphones better than anything else do stand the test of time. They don't really get outdated, but just gold-plated technology in general, I'm not usually a huge fan of because the next better thing comes out a year later. But headphones may be the best place to do this. The Ben Baller thing doesn't say anything to me, but gold that's my jam. So
you remember the $10,000 Apple Watch, the gold Apple Watch, the first gen. It's crazy.
I mean, that was just dumb. Chris says Xset Baller collab makes more sense. Beats by Dre, anyone? This is true. I mean, which obviously worked spectacularly well. All right, guys, next one. Let's talk about Warner Brothers. It's a bit more serious here. Warner Brothers may reportedly sell gaming studios, Xbox, EA, and Sony interested. So there's rumors they're going to consider selling off some of their gaming divisions. According to Fanbyte's Imran Khan, Warner Brothers Discovery may be shopping their game studios and licensed IP. Batman, Superman, Harry Potter, and names such as Microsoft, Sony, EA, Take-Two, and more are all interested in buying the teams. So, question for you guys. What do you think of the buyers? What do you think of the IP being sold? And where do we think the price of this is going to be? You got to do all that in 30 seconds. Jimmy, go ahead.
$1 billion going to Sony. That's my call.
Interesting.
And I like it. Yeah.
Jeff.
Man. I don't know why Warner Brothers is getting rid of this. They should be leaning into interactive, not selling it. It's just legacy media has no clue what they're doing in games, and this is why they get their lunch eaten by big tech over and over and over again. We saw it with streaming. It's happening again now with interactive. I think this goes for 6 to 7 billion, and probably EA.
To EA. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, Lindsay.
I want to take that one step higher and say when AT&T acquired Time Warner, they didn't have a great strategy. They sunk DirecTV almost immediately, and now they're sinking a good content studio. So not great management there, unfortunately, for AT&T, and really not forward thinking. I'm going to split the difference between these two and say 3 to 4 billion because the law of averages usually works out pretty well. And I'm going to say Sony as well.
Oh, man, you took it from me. I was going to say I think Sony, and I'll split the difference between the two of you at 5. So somewhere in that neighborhood.
Beauty contest.
But I mean, I totally agree. I don't know how anyone could. Again, we saw the Square Enix, those IPs. Maybe again, Batman, Superman, Harry Potter. This is not IP that it's at its peak. This is IP arguably on the decline. So we'll see what they get for it. Definitely more than the 300 million. All right, let's move on, guys. Next story here. We've got, this is an interesting one. The headline here: Warzone's Season 3 update caused Virgin Media's biggest gaming traffic spike on record. And what they said was, on average, between 4 p.m. and midnight on April 27th, when the patch dropped, essentially the content patch dropped, the average Virgin Media customer consumed over 12 gigs of data, which is 29% more than the previous week. So huge amount of data. And that with Season 2, the average Virgin user downloaded over 20 gigs of data over the course of 24 hours. So huge amount of data coming over these pipes. The question I have for you guys is, at some point, if we get to the like gaming experiences, metaverses that are so lifelike, where the content is just so big in terms of storage, right? Are we already sort of getting past the capabilities of the networks themselves, potentially, to even deliver these experiences? Lindsay, maybe start with you.
I cannot believe you're asking me to summarize all of America's broadband internet problems in under 20 seconds, and that's a conversation that
And
I
you just
refuse
used
to
10
have.
of them.
So, ding, move it along.
All right, Jeff.
Can I give my time to Lindsay because I feel like she has something important to say?
She passed. I don't know what to tell you.
I got nothing. No, I think that we're gonna need more solutions. Like yeah.
Okay, here's the
I
more
think
simple question.
this story says
Isn't
more
it-
about the Warzone. I think I'm impressed that Warzone was so popular.
It's
you know,
not that
everyone,
it's popular. Oh, sorry.
Well, no, go ahead. Tell me.
It's not that it's popular, it's that the game is so big, and that's the root of the question. And that's where I think decentralized services are going to come into play.
Blockchain, yeah, no.
Remember,
Crypto.
I mean, there's
Fuck
like
yeah.
the size of the games is increasing potentially faster than the width of the pipes. This is, and so if we believe that these experiences are going to be even more engaging and even more immersive, I have to believe that curve is accelerating faster than.
Paul, the width of the pipes wasn't even enough to cover online classes in Zoom last year. Like, the width of the pipes is a real big problem for reasons in and outside of gaming.
There you go, Lindsay. I finally got the take out of you. All right, guys. Let's let me do this story instead. This is a gaming chair story because everyone knows we're the foremost gaming chair reviewers here, so I have to do it. This is Noble Chairs reveals Fallout Nuka-Cola Edition gaming chair. So Nuka-Cola from the Fallout series, their version of Coca-Cola, I guess. And it's a red chair with Nuka-Cola on it. Jimmy, how much do you hate this or love this?
I'm a huge Fallout fan. They're also doing a Fallout TV show, so shout out to that. And if you play Fallout and you like Fallout lore, Nuka-Cola is where it's at. So I definitely need to replace my chair right about now. Oh, there we go.
Jeff?
I like the color red and black, so I like this chair for that reason and that reason alone. Is Nuka-Cola something I can actually buy? I know it's from Fallout, but do they do it on like a collaboration? No, they should do that. Instead of Coca-Cola doing the essence of the metaverse or whatever, they should do that.
Yeah, essence of Pixel. Lindsay?
I don't really have anything fun to add here. I hope that everyone who plays Fallout is happy and excited and buys the chair.
I'll just add another great example of IP way past its prime and on the decline and probably not worth much anymore. After a string of bad games, Fallout's one of those IPs that I think you could get for a song because no one really cares about the IP anymore. Let me just, Chris, I'm going to get to your question. I will do that as the bonus round here.
That's a good question.
It is a great question. I have one more here, and then I'm going to get to Chris's, and then we'll wrap up the lightning round here. The headline here: Microsoft boasts $3.74 billion in gaming revenue from increased Xbox Game Pass growth and console sales. This was Xbox's best non-holiday quarter yet. So $3.74 billion in revenue, up 6% year over year, and the total is split in favor of Xbox, which continues to do well for Microsoft. It says specifically in Q3 2022, gaming content and services accounted for 81% of that revenue, crossing $3 billion as a segment for the first time. So total revenue $3.74 billion, content and services 81%, hardware 19%. A lot of this driven by Game Pass. Jimmy, thoughts on this?
I don't even know where to start. I mean, awesome for them. We knew Game Pass was going to be a hit. The numbers clearly support it. I feel like this is a 20-year, 22-year vision from the launch of Xbox coming to fruition and justifying all that effort in creating this hardware that they could sell around.
does anyone see a connection between Game Pass growth here and these numbers from Microsoft and the horrible quarter Netflix had and subscriber decline there? Or is no one connecting these two things? Jeff, sorry.
I don't think it's fair to connect those two things. I mean, I know they do compete for people's time, but I don't know that they compete for people's wallets. Like, I think people can have both subscriptions. But it's a great result, and this is pre-Activision, right? So these numbers are going to be way higher. I also saw, I don't know if we covered, I forget when this story came out, but Game Pass is looking at bringing ads, or sorry, Xbox is looking at bringing in-game ads, which I think is a super transformative kind of a news event for the space, and it's super interesting. So Game Pass is killing it.
Lindsay, I want to ask you a specific question. The blue bars hardware, when you see how small it is relative to the others, is there a world where Xbox stops making hardware, where Microsoft stops making hardware when you see this kind of trend?
Oh my God, again, with the 20-second thing with this. I don't know. I think eventually, yes, but I don't know if the need for hardware is going to evolve into a need for a different type of hardware that's not a console either. So I don't know that they'll go completely software only, or completely cloud services only. Certainly think that'll be a part of it, but you're basically asking if everyone's just going to switch to PCs, and I don't know that that's going to be it.
Or phones or whatever, right? It could be anything.
Yeah, I still think
that is
even
time,
they could
though.
make a phone.
I
don't know.
Yeah, great for Microsoft. I suspect at some point management looks at the writing on the wall and says, we got to figure out how to get out of hardware, because the margins on the content and services are also probably orders of magnitude better. And at some point, it's a small enough piece of the business that they'll find other ways, like through cloud and other things. So we'll see how that evolves, but good on Microsoft. All right. Let me just read Chris's comment here. Fallout Vegas 2 will bring it back, baby. Yeah, as much as Overwatch 2 will, Chris. But let's do this one. This was your lightning round overtime. Will FaZe Clan get sold before the SPAC closes? Lindsay, start with you. So let me just add a bit of context here. There are rumors. I saw a few stories this week that the SPAC for FaZe, the $1 billion public listing for FaZe, was potentially falling apart, that they had missed revenue targets pretty significantly, and that FaZe may not go public through the SPAC at $1 billion valuation. So Chris's question here is, will there be another buyer for FaZe, or will the SPAC close, or maybe none of the above? Lindsay, start with you.
Okay, I like to cede most of my time to Jeff because this is totally his jam. The only thing that I will say is I could see a potential buyout happening despite all the issues, just because this is a merger-hungry market and an acquisition-hungry market. Other than that, I want to know what Jeff thinks.
Good thought.
I don't think there'll be a buyout. I mean, I think it's possible that they lower the SPAC price. Like the SPAC sponsor has, B. Riley has a lot of incentive to get the deal done. I think they make like a $10 million fee if the deal closes, so they'll try and get it closed. They're probably having trouble raising like that secondary like pipe round, so they might have to lower the valuation. I suspect that's probably what will happen. Maybe it gets done at like 600 or 700 million versus the billion. The end of the day, the fact is this is a business making $50 million in revenue. It never should have been worth $1 billion. And the fact that they also, the filing that came out, they had predicted, and sorry, I realize I'm going to go over time. Hopefully you'll allow it. They were supposed to do 50 million in revenue in 2021 and 10 million in losses, which in and of itself isn't great. They did about 50 million in revenue, but they actually had about 29, or I think it was 19 million in losses. So they had an extra 10 million in expenses versus what they projected, which is pretty remarkable for something they projected 6 months ago. And then they lowered they had put out targets in their SPAC presentation, and they lowered those like 30 or 40%, which is probably not surprising because 50% of the growth that they were projecting from 2021 to 2024 was coming from M&A and other opportunities. It's like, okay, what does that even mean? So yeah, they're going to have some trouble. I think the deal will end up getting done, but it definitely won't get sold before the SPAC. It'll just get sold. It'll go public with a much lower valuation, probably.
Love it. Jimmy, anything to add?
I just don't know how Lee Trink keeps his job after this one, honestly. And there's so much turnover out of that camp. Not happy about it. Obviously, as an investor in a team and as a group of us that work in this industry, you don't want to have such mismanagement or such missed expectations, because it raises a lot of questions and it puts a lot of skepticism and doubt. So that's all I'll add.
Yeah, FaZe should never have gone public in my mind. Too many skeletons in the closet, potentially. Public scrutiny is just bad for business for them. I agree with Jeff. I think they are going to go public. I don't think they get bought. They will go public through the SPAC. It'll be a way, way lower valuation. I suspect it will go lower over time as people uncover some of the mismanagement within FaZe. So not something I would buy day one. All right, guys, that wraps up this week's lightning round. Chris says, this is why I love Business of Esports. Chris, this is why we love you, because you come with these interesting ideas and comments and topics and questions, and why we love everyone who comments. By the way, I missed Tom's, who said Warner Brothers to Sony. I agree. I think the consensus was Sony was maybe the most hungry buyer. Guys, that wraps up this week's live stream. I want to encourage everyone to check out the podcast this week's fun episode. Also encourage everyone to go subscribe to Meta Woman, Lindsay's new podcast, and Meta Business, the podcast that Jeff and I do on the business side of the metaverse. So much content coming out from Crypto Bahamas to expect over the next coming weeks. It may take us time, guys, to package it all and make it fun. But we did film a ton of content from Crypto Bahamas and my panel there. So expect that, which I think was very interesting. Also, don't forget, go follow Business of Esports everywhere, on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Literally, we put out content on every single social platform, and we really appreciate all of you guys who follow, who comment, who come to the live stream. We do this every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Bring your friends, bring your colleagues. We love having all of you here. Thank you to everyone who chatted, who showed up. Thank you to everyone who lurked. Thank you, Jimmy, Lindsay, Jeff, all of you guys. Don't forget, guys, the future is fun. We will see you all next week.